Blake, Coach, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
We'll start it off with an opening statement from you, Coach, and then we'll turn it over to the media for Q&A.
Yeah, of course, I wish I could see you guys all in person right now. It's been obviously an extraordinary year, but the University of Washington football team is extremely excited to get back to normal here and get prepared for our 2020 season. Our players have worked extremely hard since our bowl game in December to prepare for this season, and they're extremely excited, along with our staff, to get this thing rolling.
Okay, we will start with questions now, and Christian Claypool will lead us off.
Hey, Jimmy, I'm wondering if there's a point, kind of what your philosophy is on the point before the season where the starting quarterback needs to know that he's the starting quarterback, and you need to let the team know that and everything, whether you make an announcement or not publicly.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really going to be more of when it feels right that person has earned that job, and I would go at every position with that answer, not just the quarterback position. Those guys are going to get their reps. I don't worry about reps. They're going to get their reps, and they're going to take a bunch of mental reps. But as soon as somebody takes control and they're able to operate our offense and make plays in practice and be able to lead our team, and it feels right, then we will make that announcement at that time. If it doesn't feel right and we don't feel like our starter is ready to go that first game, and we may have multiple guys play. And again, that'd be the same answer for any position.
I'm also curious, given the length of the Pac-12 schedule, just how realistic you think it is that the Pac-12 champion might end up in the playoff this year.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 champion should definitely end up in the playoff. If somebody goes, 7-0 or 6-1 and plays really good football, I think you also got to pay attention to how we're playing and watch those games close. I see a bunch of teams ranked right now that gave up 60, 62 points on defense, and I don't know how, if you're a voter and you still rank them in the top 25 with their defense giving up points like a basketball game. So you got to be able to watch the games. And these guys, for the most part, I know the committee does a really fantastic job since this thing has began back in 2014. If they watch one of our teams go through our conference, which is a very difficult conference, has a lot of talented players, that get drafted by the highest level of football in the National Football League. And so, if one of our teams goes through this conference and goes undefeated or one loss and they look good doing it, we deserve to be in that discussion, to be in the CFP.
Thanks.
Okay, next question, we will go to Chris Fetters.
Hey, Jimmy. Just was curious about you guys lost a handful of starters in the offensive line last year to graduation. Who do you see when you guys get to put the pads on next week? Who are going to be the major players at both the tackle position battles as well as center?
Yeah, I know it's going to be interesting. Our whole team hasn't put on pads since December, and we're all in that situation, across the country. But Chris, we got to find out next week, once we get those pads popping, who's going to rise up and who's done their homework on the offseason, knows all their stuff inside and out. Two guys that are going to play a major part of our offensive line is Jackson Kirkland and Luke Wattenberg. Those are two guys that have played a lot of football around here. They played at a high level. But then after that, we got a bunch of young guys that are really, really talented. And I'm excited to watch those guys compete and see who's going to be on opening day.
Just follow up real quick. I was curious, do you see position changes for either one of those guys? Because I know Jackson played right guard last year. Luke played left guard. There's thought about maybe left tackle for Jackson, maybe center for Luke. Can you maybe give us some more information on those things?
Yeah, those guys are going to have to be fluid. They're going to have to bounce back and forth. And I don't think you can ever just say, hey, this guy's going to play this one position. Especially, this is even without the COVID year, guys got to be able to be flexible and move inside to outside. But now with everything that we're dealing with right now, and possibly, losing a couple of guys to injury, or, they're in quarantine because of the coronavirus, guys are definitely going to have to play inside. They're going to have to play outside. And those two guys that I mentioned, Jackson Kirk and Luke Wattenberg, I believe could play at a high level at any position across the line.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay, next question. We will go to Kim Grinolds.
Mute button. Kim, I think you did that like 2 weeks ago. I see the mute button still muted. Come on. We're 6 months in the pandemic, man. You got to figure out the mute button. Okay, go ahead.
I think it was Fetters last week, by the way.
It was my fault. My fault, Kim.
Hey, just, personnel, roster stuff, any additions, subtractions, any opt-ins, any opt-outs, and also watching the Mississippi State Arkansas game last week, that Arkansas defense sure looked like your defense in the Apple Cup. Since the LSU Mississippi State game, have you received any phone calls from any coaches on the Mississippi State schedule?
So your first question, we're going to talk about all of that in my press conference on Friday, right after our first practice. We will, discuss anything that has to do with the roster on Friday. So I'd like to answer that on Friday afternoon. And then to your second question, it's been fun watching football, obviously, just kind of sitting back as we prepare for our season. And, there's been some tremendous games in other conferences. And you just mentioned a couple of games that were fun to watch. And got to see some former Pac-12 coaches, have some success last week and not so much this following week. And hey, that's how football is going to be. And it's fun to watch guys, go against a scheme that we've gone over, that we've gone against for years. That I've always told you guys is a very difficult scheme, and you can ask their previous opponent about that. But I think you're going to find out that other teams are going to have some success. And they're also going to have some failures against that scheme. And it really is a genius scheme, and they're still going to put up a lot of points.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Next question will go to Mike Varela.
Hey, Jimmy. I have two kind of unrelated questions. The first one being, I know that you don't have game times yet, but what is your thought about the prospect of 9 a.m. kickoffs? And second, you mentioned the quarterback battle a little bit. Do you know who's going to be taking the first snaps on Friday?
I do not know that, so that's easy. The first one, or the second question there. The first question is, I see a lot of positives in it. I used to live on the East Coast, and it is hard to watch West Coast games because the times they're just so different. We're fortunate on the West Coast; we get to watch every single game at a decent time and at a decent hour. And so I don't mind the 9 o'clock games at all. I think they'll be great. They'll be great for the Pac-12. They'll be great for the East Coast teams the media and fans and the other football coaches across the country be able to watch what an exciting and what a talented conference the Pac-12 is. So I'm excited about it.
Okay, next question will go to Larry Stone.
Hi, Jimmy. Regarding the topic of the Pac-12 getting into the national playoffs, do you think the conference is still fighting a negative perception? And if so, how does it change or elevate that? And also, you have said in the past that you think a lot of that is sort of an East Coast bias at play. Do you still believe that?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I was able to coach in the National Football League and be able to scout all the conferences, not just the Power 5 conferences. And there's really good talented teams, talented players across the whole country. It is definitely an East Coast bias. The way we can change it is we've got to go win some football games as a Pac-12 conference against those non-conference opponents. We also got to get them to come out here, out to our neck of the woods, which has been hard to do in recent years and was scheduled to happen this year, but lo and behold, I mean, the pandemic hits, and now two of those teams weren't able to come over here to the West Coast and play some Pac-12 opponents on our turf. And, to go along with this, and I've shared this on my radio show and maybe a couple, locally here, I believe it should be a 16 playoff. This would be a great year to start it. And I think all Power 5 champions should be in the CFP. I don't believe if you don't win your division or you don't win your conference, you would deserve to be in the CFP. And we've had those teams go into the CFP in the last 6 years. I think we still rank them exactly the way we rank them. The committee does a fabulous job. The 1 seed and the 2 seed get a bye. And then the 3 plays the 6, the 4 plays the 5, and the winners move on and they play the 1 and the 2. And then we got your final 4 and away you go. It's very, very simple. That 6th spot, I think, should be reserved for an independent, a possibly undefeated, highly ranked group of 5, or maybe it is a highly ranked second place team in a conference that has performed very well during that year. I think that way you will guarantee there's just you take all the subjectivity out of it, all the politics, the East Coast, all that. Let the champions move on, and let the teams play. Let the teams play, and we'll see who the best team is at the end of the year.
Okay, next question will go to Dan Ryley.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, if I understand this right, with eligibility kind of frozen this year, could you play a lot of guys more than you usually would?
No question. Yes, you could. Yes, you can. And I think we'll definitely use that resource here, especially due to the coronavirus and possibly having a few guys that are out, maybe contact tracing. Now they're sitting for 14 days, or maybe they're unfortunate enough to have the virus and they have to sit out. I think that's going to be a great resource for not only us, for the whole country to be able to use their players. And so we don't put our guys at risk of injury by taking too many reps. And so I think it was a great decision by the NCAA, and we'll definitely use that here at Washington.
Okay, next question will go to Joseph Claypool.
Hi, Coach. So just a quick question about the crossover game. How do you feel about who you guys currently have set up for that game? Is there another team you would have preferred to have for a stronger schedule to have a better chance of making it to the CFPs?
I think the Pac-12 did a terrific job of setting up the schedule. We're obviously playing our North opponents to vie for the right to represent the North in the Pac-12 championship. They kept all the home and the away sites exactly the way they were going to be in 2020, which won't affect our calendars moving forward in 2021 and beyond. And then how they selected our one opponent from the South. It was an opponent that was supposed to come here anyway. And so the way they're going to do it is, we had 3 away games in the North, and we have to make it equal, we're going to have 3 home games. So they picked one of the home opponents that we're going to play here in Husky Stadium in 2020, regardless. And they did that across the board in the whole conference. So I think it was a fabulous job by those guys of setting that thing up. I know it had to look like a Rubik's Cube trying to fit all the pieces together, but they did it, and we're excited to play our schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, next question will come from Bruce Feldman.
Hey, Jimmy, I was curious with your 16 playoff idea, how much have you shared with your peers? And has there been much lobbying on your part to try to get that idea more traction?
Bruce, this is awesome. Good to hear from you, by the way. I have my model all drawn up for since the CFP has started, and how it would have ended up with the rankings of how the College Football Committee ranked them, who won the championship, and who actually would have been matched up. And I think, and I could send it to you after this, and I think you guys would all, and the college football fans would drool over this schedule. You give bonus points to the teams that are ranked 1 and 2. Those teams are probably undefeated anyway, and they'll get that bye. And then all the conference champions are represented, and you're actually going to see who ended up, if a group of 5 made it, or maybe a second place Big Ten, Pac-12 opponent made it in that years. But I have shared it internally, and definitely with our athletic director, Jen Cohen. I think we could all get behind it. I think anything after 6 is too many. I think we know who the top teams are in the country. And if you got the Power 5 represented +1, there's going to be very minimal argument beyond that. And if you don't win your championship, if you don't win your own championship or your own division, then you don't deserve to vie for a national championship. That's just my opinion. But I would love to share. I have it all planned out, and I'll send it to you. I'd love to send it to you.
How long did it take you to kind of map this all out?
I had the help of my son, my oldest son. He listened to my idea and he's like, "Dad, that sounds pretty good." And he went back through and we did all the matchups. And it was great. One of the years we ended up, the seed that we would have been, I think it was in 2018, we would have played Notre Dame. We would have played Notre Dame, who, I mean, I know our fans would have loved to see that matchup. And then the winner would have moved on to play the 1 or the 2 seed. But it took me about less than an hour. And takes a lot of subjectivity out of it. And let's get the conference champions in. Let's give the group of 5, the independents, like the Notre Dames, the BYUs, a chance also. And I think it'd be great for college football.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Okay, next question will come from Ruth Robbins.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Ruth.
Hey, as you know, I mean, UW was picked to finish 3rd in the Pac-12 North and 6th in the conference in the preseason media poll.
I didn't know that, but go ahead.
Well, you do now. We all know there's a lot of unknowns with injuries and chemistry and just plain luck on the bounce of the ball. But, and I'm not asking you to do a Joe Namath prediction, but my question is just, do you feel that you have the talent to win the Pac-12? And how talented is this team, in your opinion?
Yeah. So the first thing is it comes back to hard work and great practice habits. We feel like we have some extremely talented players that have been here, and we've also brought in some really good players that are extremely talented. But now we got to coach these guys up, and we got to instill our work ethic and how we grind around here. They've been doing a fabulous job since school has began, and we've been able to do these walkthroughs with them and learning their schemes on each side of the ball and on special teams. And then we're going to really find out, who our real guys are when the pads get on and we start flying around a little bit and hitting each other and playing football for real. And this, this is on us coaches to get our players to improve each and every single day, and then prepare for our first opponent. And once we do that and we do things the right way, we will see where we are after game 1. And then we got to steadily improve after game 1 to game 2 to game 3 and beyond.
And as a follow-up question that's kind of unrelated, do you know it yet about how the game day experience is going to work in terms of the fan noise being pumped in? I mean, I was watching the Seahawks game and it just sounded like a regular Seahawks game, but there's no fans there. Have you talked much with Jen or the event planning committee on how they're going to, committee or whoever does this, about how this is going to work at Husky Stadium?
Yeah, so it's going to be more at the Pac-12 level. They've had those discussions, and those discussions are still continuing. Whatever the Pac-12 decides, we will do on a equal basis across all 12 schools. I know it'll sound better for TV if there's at least a little bit of noise, some noise from the crowd. But all the exact details, Ruth, I'm sorry, that's still going to come out here from the Pac-12. But they're sorting it out, and whatever they decide, it won't be from each school. It'll be conference-wide, and we'll do it equally.
Okay, next question will come from Lars Hansen.
How's it going, Coach?
Lars, how you doing?
Good. So I remember you mentioned, I believe, to Christian a while back, earlier this year, the impact that it's going to have on recruiting. And especially, I think you mentioned in the 2022 classes, how have you seen the impact in recruiting, and how do you project that it will, given that the NCAA extended the dead period through January, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah,
and unfortunately, I do agree with what the NCAA handed out with the dead period. I think the health and safety of our players, our staff, and then all the recruits and prospects across the country. Of course, we want them to go see all the colleges and be able to pick which one that best suits them. But just for safety purposes, they made the right decision. And yes, you're right. So the 2021 class, which I've discussed before, we've been recruiting these guys for 3.5 years, 3 years, some 4 years already. And they've been to our place and they've been to other places. And and some guys already know they want to come to the University of Washington. That class is not going to be affected too much. But 2022 and beyond, I definitely feel for those guys because they have not been able to go on to the college campuses that maybe they thought, hey, this is where I want to go. Hopefully things clear up in 2021, but also from an evaluation standpoint with a lot of schools, especially in our footprint, Washington, California, Oregon, we haven't been able to watch high school football and watch these guys develop. There's definitely coaching staffs across the country are going to have to do their extra homework to find the guys that have grown 3-4 inches and got faster and got bigger, and all of a sudden turned into a big time prospect. And so that'll be a challenge for coaches. But I definitely feel for those high school players that weren't able to show all the growth that they've had and what they've been doing in the weight room.
And then one last follow-up. Has there been any discussions, or do you know what the latest is on whether the December signing day will stay, February, anything around that note?
I've heard everything's going to remain exactly the same, which I completely agree with. Like I just mentioned, the 2021 class, these guys have already been on a lot of unofficial visits for the last 3 years. A lot of these players know where they go, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else. Their decisions have been made. Let those guys sign in December. If they're not sure, it's set up perfectly. We have another signing day in February, and so the guys that are not sure and maybe still want to poke around and look at some other universities, let those guys sign in February. But everything that I've heard, it's the signing periods will remain exactly as they are.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Okay, next question will come from Michael.
Hey, Coach. Thank you for doing this. I just wanted to ask, what do you think Washington and the Pac-12 as a whole can do to improve the national perception of the teams in the conference, even if there is that East Coast bias that you talk about? And I would personally agree with. What do you think we can do as a conference and Washington themselves to improve that perception?
Yeah, I think it comes down to we got to win those non-conference games that we have not won the last couple of years. Once we begin to do that on a continual basis, that'll definitely help the image of the Pac-12. But we have some really good teams out here, and with some really good football players and some really good coaches that have coached a lot of football, and it's just the way it is that we are one conference out here at West. There's a vast land out here that we're all representing, and it's unfortunate, but the way the national media likes to characterize it is there's this one conference way out there, and they're not at par with the other conferences, which is completely untrue. And the other thing, like I mentioned already, is we got to drag some of these schools to come out here and come out to our turf and play out here, which if you go back and look at the schedules, has not happened very much. It's a neutral site game. It's usually closer to their footprints and with all their fans, and that advantage goes to them. And so we got to get those non-conference games out here and let them play in our environments. We'll return the favor. We'll go back out there. But this is a strong conference that I think you're going to see continue to play good football and continue to have NFL draft picks that will be continually selected out of this conference.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have time for a few more. We'll start with Kelsey Ekberg.
Hi, Coach. Thanks so much for your time, and so glad to see that you're doing well. With the football season about to start, ASU released an analysis that found within the last 10 years, coaches of color had a lower chance of being hired as a head coach, even though they typically have more experience than their hired white counterparts. As a coach of color, what does it mean to you hearing those statistics?
You said that they won't get rehired. Is that what the statistics said?
No, they will end up not getting hired at all, even though they have more experience.
Yeah, so I've discussed this with a lot of coaches, over the past few years. The first thing we have to do is we have to get more coordinators, defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators of color across the country. And as soon as we get to that model, I think you'll start to see more candidates that can go and interview for head jobs and be successful. And I think when we start at that level and have more coordinators, because if you look across the country, there's not a lot of coordinators that are minorities, and not a lot of position coaches coaching running backs, wide receivers, D-line, O-line, just rise and accelerate and excel and go up to being head football coaches. And so if we can get more coordinators across the country, I think that's going to help with our obviously low levels of head coaches of color.
Thanks. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question from Dave Mahler.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you, man?
Great. I don't know Dave. I know Softy, but what's up, man? How you doing, Softy?
Good. Those non-conference games, and it seems like every year there's one in Atlanta in the SEC at the Falcon Stadium. You got a couple new stadiums in Vegas and LA, obviously have opened up. Would you be in favor of playing some big-time non-conference neutral site games in places like Vegas and Los Angeles?
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I mean, of course, what we would love to do is a home and home, which we have a couple set up, but obviously this year got disrupted. The home and home, I think, is great because you know, it's back-to-back years and it's fair. One time they come here and one time we go there. I think those are fantastic. But yes, for sure, these neutral site games, I think that site in Las Vegas it looks beautiful on TV. I can't wait to actually visit in person. It would be phenomenal to get those guys to come out in our neck of the woods with our fan base. I think that would be awesome. So Safi, let's get that set up.
And then do you know anything about trying to reschedule the Michigan game that was called off this year?
I do not. All I know is we're going there next year. That's all I know at this point.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go back to Mike Varela.
Jimmy, I think you said on your radio show last week that inside linebacker was one of your deepest positions, which might surprise some people because it's also a pretty young position still for you guys. I'm wondering, you know, who do you think is really going to lead the way at that spot?
Yeah, so it's a deep position in terms of we have a lot of bodies. That was the question was, what are your deepest position? It wasn't what's your deepest position with veterans that have played a lot of football. We are almost 6 deep at that position, and we were young last year at that position, and we almost have everybody back at that position. And plus, we signed you know, some recruits, and so that's what we're excited about. Those guys have been training since December, and I feel really good about their growth. And you know, right now, you know, Jackson Sermon's played some football for us. He's looking really well. Obviously, Edifwan Ulafashio, and I could go on and on. Junior Tafisi. I mean, we've got some talented guys that have played football for us, and they're coming back. So I'm excited about that group, but we definitely got to go out there and prove it on game day.
Okay, thanks, Coach. That's all we have time for this afternoon. Best of luck with the start of camp and the upcoming season. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.